My wife is sick, so I've been on kiddo duty yesterday and today. Watched The Lion King this afternoon with the kiddos, and when we were done, I was so fired up. I was ready to record an intro to the podcast with two children, a 4-year-old and a toddler right there. I tried it. I tried to do it. It was a terrible idea. There's no way that was going to work. Um, Not my greatest call. But anyway, here we are. They're asleep now. And I'm recording the intro to this week's episode with Eva Rose Daniel and Nausheen Chen on once the monsters have been subdued until tomorrow. This is In Linky Land. I'm Tony Albrecht. And I want to lead off by saying thank you to everybody who showed up for our first shot at a live event for Linky Land. Sam Brown and I did a session on Friday, the 2nd of December, that I intended to have be an episode of the podcast. That didn't happen. I think we're gonna change up our format. We went with the LinkedIn Live audio format on the platform, and Sam and I were also on Zoom initially, and it was screwing with his audio in a way that then we axed the Zoom, which was how I was going to record it. So we didn't do that, but it was a lot of fun. We tried a segment called Content Rescue, where Jeanette Smith, a very talented writer and editor out of Dallas, volunteered to be a guinea pig for this, where uh, we basically unpacked her situation, her LinkedIn uh, hopes and fears and frustrations, and uh, I hope put her on a better path. We'll see. I feel I'm now invested in Jeanette's success on the platform in a new way. I'm actually going to link to Jeanette in the show notes here. See if we can't get her a few more connections out of the deal. So, um, yeah, check that out. But this episode was a lot of fun to record. We recorded it on Friday night here on the East Coast for myself and Eva. Nausheen, it was her Saturday morning in Hong Kong, and we had a lot of fun. Um, both both of them have their own businesses that they've started this year uh, in the speaking space, and we sort of get into the nuances of that. But Nausheen's is called Speak Like a Leader, or Speak as a Leader, I think it was, and Eva's is the Speak Shop. Um, and as you may have heard, I've also started a business, Contender Creative, in the last 6 weeks. So I was really interested to dig into that with these two women, um, where basically all three of us are now all in on businesses that are built largely on the backs of our LinkedIn networks. That without LinkedIn, we couldn't be running the businesses we're running and building them. Um, so we talk about our experiences on the platform. Obviously, that's what the podcast is about, right? And then we really get into some of the details, the finer points of trying to build a business uh, on LinkedIn. Things like finding your niche and figuring out how to structure your offers, and do you how long do you kind of focus on your higher ticket consulting offer before you throw in a group coaching offer, or build out a course or some other form of product, and we cover a lot of ground. And this was this was one of those conversations that I love. Part of why I love doing this podcast is we just started rolling, and it was like we were friends, even though the three of us had never spoken to one another before. We rolled for a while, stopped the recording, and then rolled for another, I think, 20 minutes, even though it was time for me to go to bed. So I had an absolute blast with that. And I think that's enough out of me for right now. Let's get into it. Uh, Here is the conversation with Eva and Nausheen. All right, Eva, Nausheen, thank you for joining me for the podcast. I think this one is going to be more laid back than most of these episodes, and my episodes tend to be pretty laid back to begin with. But it's Friday night here in the US, or I guess I'm in Canada, aren't I? I know where I am. But Eva, and then Saturday morning there in Hong Kong for you, Nausheen. And um, I think what we're ultimately going to get into is the joys and struggles of starting and building businesses. Uh, Eva and I were DMing the other night on LinkedIn and just sharing some of our in real time adventures and feelings about it, and figured that there's some really juicy stuff there. But before we get into that, let's start with a little bit of groundwork. Well, first of all, the two of you have spoken before, right?
No, this is actually the first time. We've messaged back and forth, but this is the first time. Now she's really awesome, and she's reached out to me like 4 times, like, "Hey, let's collab on something." And then I'm like, "Yeah." And then here we are, finally meeting on your podcast.
Well, there's I think it was a meme that was something like, yeah, like life as adults is like, or maybe it was a John Mulaney joke, but something about like, we say we got to get together, and then we schedule something for 2 months from then, and then we reschedule, and then we stop,
it's like
and
an
then
infinite loop.
yeah, and then nothing happens. Like everything's fine. The world just continues, and you just don't have friends because you're an adult. Um, so okay, and obviously, well, I don't know if it's obvious, but I'm about to say this is the first time I'm speaking with either of you as well. So uh, we've got a lot of ground to cover. And let's start with intros. Just name, where you are located, and what it is you care about or um, focus on with what you do in Linky Land on the platform. Nausheen, how about you lead us off?
Sure. So my name is Nausheen, and I'm based in the south of China. Very random because I'm not from China. I am married into a Chinese family. My husband is half Chinese, so that explains part of the story, but probably not all of it. I've kind of been all over, and I'm also now French. None of this conforms to the rules that Tony just laid out, but what I really care about is helping people speak better on camera and on stage. And this is something that has been my passion for a very long time. And I took the absolute longest way to get here. So I've had a career in marketing and PR. I was in Procter and Gamble for a while. Then I've been a filmmaker, which was not part of the plan. It was never my dream. I was one of those people who became a filmmaker by accident. Probably aren't a lot of us, and ended up bootstrapping a filmmaking startup in China. Again, very weird, and realized along the way that what I was enjoying the most was working with on-screen talent, and especially people that hadn't been on camera before. So I was working with a lot of C-suite execs who were giving product launch keynotes, for example, for the first time. And that's where I really found my passion, which I'm now following this year, which is helping people speak better.
And I I'm Eva, and kind of similar to like Nausheen, I love public speaking as well. I live here in the Nashville area. I moved here 4 years ago from Colorado, still getting used to Southern life. It's very different from the West Coast in Colorado, but I moved down to the Nashville area to be Dave Ramsey's speechwriter, and he has a whole team of speakers that I worked for. Super passionate about storytelling. I was a radio podcast producer for 15 years before changing to speech writing, and I just love storytelling and helping people tell better stories. And I think some of that stems from I get bored easily by people's presentations and lack of being able to share good stories. And I myself am trying to continually live a better story, both just for myself and for my kids. I'm a mom of 4 kids, which all the background noise anyone listening is hearing, that's my children, because it is Friday night and they're living it up a little bit here. But so that's what I am all about. And 3 months ago, I decided to quit my job and start my own business of speech coaching. And it had been something I'd wanted to do for a really long time. Since my late 20s, I had started having this experience. Like when I was a radio producer, I would interview potential guests about their books. A lot of them were book-based guests. And I would get them on the phone doing a pre-interview just to see if they could speak and how well they could talk in their book, to see if I could book them for this national radio program. And they would not be able to talk about their book at all. And I'd be sitting there thinking, you got a book deal with a mainline publisher, which is not easy to do. I mean, it's hard to get a book deal, and they'd gone all the way through the process, and then they were really flat. And so I realized in my late 20s, I wanted to start this business of just helping. At the time, it was going to be helping authors learn how to, speak on their books. It just took until I was almost 40. Is this my midlife crisis? I don't know. I'll keep you guys posted. But it took until I was almost 40 to quit my job and decide I'm going to go for it. I'm going to start this business and really help people tell better stories.
I did want to ask, well, Nausheen, do you know who Dave Ramsey is?
Only through Eva.
Okay. Right on. So in the US, he's quite famous as this like radio host with a huge personality. And frankly, I've been helped by his stuff, by some of the stuff and the approaches to personal finance and getting rid of debt. So that's cool. I did want to ask you about that, Eva. What sort of speeches were you writing for him?
That's a great question, because obviously he's been a speaker. For those not as familiar with him, I mean, he's been sharing messages about personal finance for 30 years and has lots of, hot takes on different financial issues, like you shouldn't have credit cards. And he pulls these giant scissors on the stage and he cuts up credit cards and all these, dramatic actions. So people are like, did you come up with that? I'm like, no, I helped him for like the last 4 years. And so interestingly enough, I mean, he was one of those speakers that a lot of the speeches I worked for were the more inspirational event openings or closes, or just really, I mean, a variety of talks. But I have found that the more advanced people come in their speaking career, they recycle a lot of stories and a lot of content a lot. So I would kind of be coming up with those new examples or anecdotes or stories from history. I almost double majored with history in college. It required taking some French history classes when I got to the end. And I was like, I'm good with just a minor in history. And so I ended up, for Dave specifically, because I kind of had that history base that I could pull from, writing just a handful of talks. And then 2020 was a wild year, obviously, for everybody. And we ended up pivoting and doing so many live streams. And so I ended up just really as a team. I mean, we had been turning on cameras doing live stream to that extent, but helping a lot of like, how do we become more compelling in the live stream space as well? And shorter stories and even writing a lot of video spots and all sorts of things, radio copy, because I had a background in radio as well. So kind of a variety of speeches.
Right on. And Nausheen, how are you French?
How am I French? So I do not like the beginning of this story, because everyone kind of assumes that I got it by marriage. So my husband is French, but they make you work for it. This is something that no one tells you. It's not like America, I think. So you have to, first of all, study French. You have to be, at least an intermediate level. Now I'm at an intermediate advanced level in French. You have to pass an exam. You have to then pass several interviews. And then if they deem that you've jumped through all the hoops and that you're sufficiently French, you have to exhibit knowledge of French culture, French history, French geography. So I literally studied like French philosophers, and I understood, like, I have not lived in France yet, but I now can tell you about the rivers in France and the mountains and the regions and how elections happen. And then they let you in, they let you be French. So that was gotcha. My journey. It was my big 2021, 2022 journey. And now I'm very proud to be French.
How many languages can you speak? Sorry, I'm butting in with a question, but how many languages can you speak?
3/4. So I grew up bilingual. I've been speaking English since I was little, and my second language was Urdu, and it's 3/4 because I can also speak Hindi, because Urdu and Hindi are really similar. So, but I can't like read or write it. And then French.
Right on. And you grew up in Karachi, is that right?
Yeah, good stalking.
I did my research. All right, so let's get into what brings us all here today, LinkedIn. I'm interested in hearing everybody's story with how they came to discover that the world's most boring social media network actually, it can be a lot of fun. And I don't want to assume that you think it's fun, but I'm pretty sure the two of you do based on our interactions. So as I talked about ad nauseum, I spent 12 or 13 years as an attorney, ignoring the platform for the most part before discovering it in a new way over the last year. And it's been utterly life-changing. So interested to hear just a quick take on how it unfolded for the two of you. And then we're going to get into the joys of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So yeah. I started on LinkedIn in 2008 when my boss at my job said everyone has to get on LinkedIn and make a profile. And for several years, I would get those emails of, hey, connection request, and I'd go on and accept, periodically notifications. And then about a year and a half ago, I was pretty active on Facebook, not in a business way, but just on a social media way. And my Facebook account was hacked and never recovered. I mean, I submitted my ID to Facebook. I asked every friend I knew in social media, how do I get my account back? And I basically had friends say, you're screwed, you're not going to get it back. But I said my ID, and when it was like, you can submit a birth certificate, I'm like, no, thanks, Facebook. And so I got really angry at Facebook, and I'd still kind of been popping on LinkedIn here or there. And then I looked over when my Facebook was gone, and I thought, when did this become this platform? And so I lurked for about 6 months of, I'd like or comments. And then in February of this year, I thought, I'm going to try just starting to post. Up until that point, I'd posted in 14 years, I'd posted 6 times total. And so in February of this year, I thought, I'm going to just post twice a week. But I'm one of those people, I'm a little all or nothing. So I either do better doing something every single day or not at all. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it 3 weeks. I'm going to post every day for 3 weeks and just see what happens. And at that point in February, I had just shy of 700 connections because I hadn't even turned on creator mode where you could have followers yet. And most of those people were, those people you collect from college or first jobs. And so in February, I started posting. And then it became really addictive, as I'm sure it is for all of us, where I started, I was like, oh, this is a great platform for writing and me getting, my voice out and my personal brand out. Because at that point, I'd built great personal brands and companies, but I hadn't really done it outside of the companies I worked in. And then the crazy thing started happening where I started talking to people on Zoom and then in real life. And even just last night in Nashville, we're on our 4th LinkedIn meetup with Nashville people, meeting great people. And some people I knew, and then like new people. And so it's the first, I can honestly say it's the first social media platform that I've met internet strangers that have become friends. And it truly gave me the confidence to quit my job and start my own business because I started getting clients on there as well. And so, I mean, it sounds so dramatic to be like, it changed my life, but LinkedIn really has changed my life.
It's changed my life too. Yeah, it's so weird.
It feels so, and it's so funny what you said, because I have family members that aren't on the platform, or college friends that are maybe on it, like we all used to view it as that boring thing. And my family, my parents are so confused where I'm getting clients. They're like, well, but where are you getting clients? I'm like, LinkedIn. And I'm like showing it to them. And there's, I think they still have no idea what I'm doing. But so it's been wild. I mean, it's been wild. And, I'm not one of those people that since February, I have 50,000 followers, but I mean, I have almost like 10x what I started with in February, which has just been crazy to me. But I think it's been the most interesting platform to actually make friends on and meet just incredible people all over the world, as well as growing a business.
That's really well said. What are y'all doing on the meetups? What do those look like?
Oh, they are so fun. So it started over the summer. I was messaging back and forth with somebody I met on LinkedIn in Nashville, and he said, oh, it'd be really fun if we just pulled a few of us together. So a half dozen of us met up at a brewery, and it was so fun that, was tapped on the shoulder, hey, who's going to plan the next one? And so the 6 of us kind of remain that core, and then we all just kind of invite other people we meet. And so last night, I mean, there's 15 of us hanging out at, a local restaurant. And it has been, for anybody who's not taken LinkedIn to real life, do a LinkedIn meetup in your city. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of planning. We literally have we're meeting at this restaurant from 5 to 7 on this Thursday night, and we've started doing them once a month. So yeah, last night was our 4th one, and they've been awesome.
That's fantastic.
Have you guys done those LinkedIn meetups where you are? I highly recommend it.
I'm up in the woods. I'm like 2 hours from Toronto, so there aren't. It's mainly like moose and deer up where I live.
You should invite them.
Yeah, well, they're not on LinkedIn.
Good company.
But I don't know if you know Rob Gilbert. He's a coach out of Toronto.
He's lived close to you?
Relatively. He lives close to my in-laws' townhouse that we stay at in Toronto regularly. So I was out with him last week, and he floated an idea for a meetup in Toronto that he wants to take a crack at, that would be renting out a place. So he was a DJ for a long time. Yeah. And it was the place where he had his retirement party from music. But it's now this like day spa where they have like big saunas and then cold plunges, and he wants to rent it out for like a LinkedIn event. And
that's a big step. I don't know. I might start with just a bar, like our brewery.
That sounds that sounds ambitious, but like it could be epic.
I'm in. I think in Linky Land is gonna take on a sponsorship role or something like that with it.
One little funny story about the LinkedIn meetups. I've laughed every time, because some people I have met in real life, and I think to myself, you need to get a new profile picture. Like, you are way better looking in real life than your profile picture. Like, you need a new profile picture. And then other people I mean, I think, wow, you look nothing like your profile picture. And then I leave thinking, I wonder what they think of me. Like, which way do I fall on that spectrum? But
for what it's worth, yours is pretty accurate.
Okay, well, that's good. Mm-hmm. That's good.
You come across as like a lot of personality and very friendly in your you did a good job.
So, okay, good. It's a lot better than my stale headshot that I had, for 5 years sitting on the platform once I finally got the upgrade.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, Rob was actually the first person to tell me when I first talked to him was months ago. And he was the first person to tell me I need a new LinkedIn picture, because at that time I had this picture that I really loved, but it had me in like super short hair, like spiky short hair. And then he met me and he was like, Nausheen, you can't have a picture on LinkedIn which does not match you in reality, because it gives people this weird kind of initial psychological shock. And he was very adamant. And I booked a photo shoot like the next week, because I was like, this is this great coach on LinkedIn. And he told me this, and I need to follow this advice. And it was a great advice. So yeah, pictures need to be good representations.
So that piece of advice. So, I mean, you clearly put a lot of intention into your branding, right? With, I mean, your hair matches your background. Like that's
for those who can't see, we should comment the fact that Nausheen has beautiful purple hair. I have hair envy, and her background is a stunning purple as well.
Indeed.
I was a little intimidated coming on this podcast because you have such great hair. I was like, oh. Not that it's competition, but you know.
You have great hair.
Oh, so do you, Tony. We can't see it underneath
absolutely.
the beanie.
Well, I mean, my brand is all about, beards and hats, right?
And nature.
Just natural. Right. Look at that beautiful tree there behind me on the wall. Yeah, it's so natural. Okay, but my question. So I'm thinking about doing a shoot when I'm in St. Louis over the holidays with this branding photographer who I've seen some of his work and been really impressed with it. There's a question. I mean, it's not crazy expensive. A shoot with him is like $400, so it's not crazy. Question is it worth it? Thoughts?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You should.
It's like a no-brainer. If you go
in prepped. Oh yeah, absolutely. If you go in prepped with the poses that you want, the expressions that you want, that would really help you. Like, yeah, of course, exactly those. Which, so again, for people who are listening, Tony just struck some awesome poses that he should totally be doing, and we should see on his LinkedIn very soon.
There you go.
So it's really worth it if you look up the poses that you want to do, and you even have them like on a printout, and then you improvise a bit. And I would really suggest do like a mix of like serious and funny. And the funny ones will really help you out later when you want to make different kinds of posts.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Eva, you agree?
I do agree. And you'll appreciate this story. So when I was getting new headshots, because I had just been using the one I got from my job, and then I quit my job and got it. I was like, I need a new headshot. I had the photographer, getting new headshots, and the one that I've used on my LinkedIn profile, that I love the photo. So we're getting these photos taken in Nashville, which is, a beautiful city on a river. There's a big bridge with a city skyline in the background. If you've never been to the Nashville area, it's very pretty. And she goes, okay, well, I want you to laugh and shake your shoulders, like lean forward. And she like kind of does this like shimmy thing with her shoulders. And so like I'm standing there going, ah, and she's like, no, not like that. And she demonstrates, you guys, 15 times in a row. She's like, no, like this. And she tosses her shoulder and she like laughs and her hair flows over her shoulder. She's like, now you do it. And I was like, and she's like, well, no, like this. And so I'm just giving you warning, Tony. This is, just be prepared. Photographers make, their weight in gold, because they bring out the best of us and they make us do things in photos that we wouldn't. So yes, to Nausheen's point, take those poses you think about doing, but be prepared for this brand photographer to be like, now, Tony, throw back your head and laugh. And he'll be like, and he'll be like, not like that.
Is one of those shoulder shimmy photos the actual headshot you have?
Yes. It's my favorite photo. It is my favorite photo of all of the photos, because it felt natural. Once we, 15 takes in, it felt very natural. And like, that actually is me. Like that, I felt like that photo really grabbed who I was, and it was my favorite from the deck. But just be prepared. Prepare your heart now for that photo shoot.
All right. I will. And I'm just going to try. It's one of those things that I think about in terms of ROI, and then you can't think about it that way, right?
No,
it's more holistic.
It's going to have ROI.
Well, and can you unpack that a little bit? What do you mean by that?
because it's going to yield so much that you can use in different ways. You can use it not just for your LinkedIn photos. So like I was saying, have like different, if you have different kinds of gestures and different backgrounds and different things happening in the photos, one photo shoot can yield anywhere between like 30 to 50 great photos if you make like good use of your time. And you can use them on your website. You can use them on LinkedIn posts, especially if you create, like if you have like these funny ones, because there's something to be said about this combination of really funny, informal, goofy expression, but like great lighting and great hair and great background. It creates this really interesting juxtaposition, and people really dig that. You can have like a goofy expression in your kitchen and people are like, yeah, okay, she's being goofy in the kitchen. But you do that in a photo shoot, people just really like it. So there's a lot you can do with the photos. I mean, I had my photo shoot in August and I'm still using the photos now in December.
Right on. Well, thank you so we've actually jumped ahead to the part where I ask you all for advice on how to be a better entrepreneur. So we're already into that part, but I do want to circle back. Nausheen, your experience with LinkedIn and it opening up in a new way. Tell me about that.
So I would say that the beauty of LinkedIn is that I woke up today with this big smile on my face, thinking like, I'm going to have a conversation with two awesome people that I feel that I already know. Mm-hmm. And that is not something that you can achieve with any other platform, I really think, because I've been following your content and we've never spoken in real life. You know, I've never spoken to Tony or Eva in real life or even on Zoom before. But I feel like I know you. I know about Eva's kids. I know about her struggles as an entrepreneur. She's been taking us with us on her journey. I know about Tony's love for walks and nature and how he's thinking about whether he's niched down too much too early on in his career. And that is the real beauty of the platform. And just like 99.9% of us, I was completely oblivious to it for the longest time. I also made my account when I was doing my first job at Procter & Gamble, probably back in 2007, 2008. And I also completely ignored it and just used it maybe once a year, once in 2 years. And this year, I really wanted to invest in personal branding. I wanted to figure out who I was, and the way that my brain is wired, I am best at figuring out who I am when I'm talking to other people. I can't just go in and like journey inside my head. Yeah. So I didn't even know that building in public was this cool thing. So I did it before I knew it was cool. And I literally just started writing on LinkedIn, writing about everything. So if you go back and look at my posts from back in March, like I'm talking about filmmaking, I'm talking about living in China, I'm talking about branding, things that I don't talk about anymore because they're not, in my niche. And I refined and found my niche through LinkedIn, through writing and posting and getting feedback from the community and figuring out what's resonating with me. What do I really want to talk about? And if I was to talk about this 5 years from now, would I still want to talk about it? And public speaking and speaking on camera were two of those things. So absolutely very similar, I think, to both of you. Just started in March or in April. At that time, I didn't even know what the LinkedIn algorithm was. I didn't even know social media platforms operated through algorithms because I was living under a rock. Because I never really used Instagram. I used Facebook, but I never used Facebook for the algorithm. I just used it with my friends. So I literally posted from April to May or June. I posted without engaging with anyone at all. I didn't realize that was part of the thing. So I was posting every single day without engaging. And then I started talking to people and understood how to actually LinkedIn. And then from then on, yeah, it's really exploded and I love it. I'm as addicted as you guys. I have so much fun. Like Tony was saying, it's super intense, but at the same time, I cannot imagine building my business without LinkedIn.
I had a friend this friend that's in social media when I was about 6 weeks in say, Eva, your engagement's crazy. And I went, it is. And they're like, yeah, you're like at 2%. And it's like, that's good. That's considered good engagement. And I guess, it is like if you get around 2%, anything above 2% is considered great. But to your point, I didn't even know what an algorithm was because Facebook was just posting pictures to college friends and family. And it's just such a different experience.
Yeah, and it's been one of the most amazing and surprising dynamics of the thing where when I started trying to use it, it was because I was in a business development role all of a sudden and, needed to be hustling that way. But I started writing about creativity because I did Justin Welsh's operating system and that whole what's something you can talk about all day long, and like I've been studying creativity for 5 years and running my virtual community with my sister. And so I just started doing that. And it was through that I started running across people who also talked about creativity. And it seems like that's something that's really hard to do on Facebook, Instagram, where it's more like who you already know. It seems like it's who's actually in your network, whereas LinkedIn operates more like Twitter, right? Where you've got all your little corners based on your interests, and you're going to end up connecting with other people who are interested in the same thing. But unlike Twitter, LinkedIn, not a total cesspool. Huh? There. I said it, Twitter. And I I felt that way about Twitter, I mean, before things have really gotten interesting over there. But that's neither here nor there. Nausheen, how long have you been full time with Speak as a Leader?
This is a new brand. I would say just full-time formal coaching. I launched it in July, August. But yeah, I've been coaching leaders and C-suite for about 7 or 8 years. Otherwise, like through different kinds of projects and also through PR.
Right on. Okay. So, Eva, your business called the Speak Shop.
Yes.
How similar are your businesses? Because from what I read in preparing for this, they sound like very similar businesses. Are they?
Great question.
I don't think so.
I don't think, I think that we have a lot of overlaps. I mean, there's this degree, there's nothing new under the sun. So things that make great storytelling or great speeches, it's going to be great no matter if you're, like what avenue you're posting. I think one of the biggest differences, and Nausheen, I would love to hear since it's our first time talking about it. I think that Nausheen has a far greater depth on like that on camera and like the video component on camera side. And I think I have much more of a background on the podcasting, radio, and maybe even the bigger stages. I think Nausheen has worked a lot more with, and I do work with CEOs and leaders as well, but I think you work a lot more with leaders and I've worked a lot more with professional speakers. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I would say there are a lot of differences. One, I feel that Eva's background and specialization is more in speech writing and in the content development and refining, and Eva loves, shaping this raw material into these beautiful stories that people can tell. And I would say my specialization is very much refining people's speaking skills. I do end up coaching my clients on some of their content, but I do tell them that what I love doing and what my passion and what my experience is in is really coaching them to be better speakers and to understand what it takes to be a better speaker. So really on that delivery aspect of it, not so much the content development aspect. And yeah, to Eva's point, I would say most of my experience in the past has been with C-suite, especially when I've been coaching CTOs, CEOs, and CMOs to do their very first product launch keynote, or when I've coached CEOs to do their very first media interviews when I was doing PR. So really helping them, get on the BBC, get on TechCrunch, get on Forbes, and really training them on how to deliver this content, how to pull out charisma from their personality and express it through their screen or through the camera, which is a challenge at times. So I would say those are some of the differences. Yeah.
Love that. And that makes a lot of sense. Eva, I want to unpack uh what we were talking about a little bit the other night. How are things going with you? I know you've been sharing some of your journeys, the ups and downs on the entrepreneurial path. Um, what's up?
Yeah, it's hard to start a business. And I think one of the things that has surprised me the most is there's so many decisions. It's so many decisions all the time. And even decisions from how to spend your time and even trying to piece through how long things should take. So when it comes to the work itself, it's like once I have the client, to me working on that content and the coaching, that's all pretty straightforward. But it's the other piece is like I don't really know how long invoicing people on QuickBooks should take, or how long it should take to make a carousel for LinkedIn, or how long it should take to figure out how to use the web camera and your podcast mic at the same time. And not like there's like this set limit of how long it should take, but just even like having a basis of being like, wow, this is a lot slower, or, early on. And I posted about this probably 3 months ago, but I mean, I was just having so many issues with my computer. And I was like doing this and I was trying and would not open a program. And I was trying and trying and trying. And after about 2 hours, I finally thought, okay, if I was still in my job and if I were to call IT, what would they tell me to do? And then I realized restart my computer. Restart my computer worked great. And so it was just one of those, moments where you're everything. You're your IT department, you're the marketing, you're the sales, you're client facing, you're doing all of the pieces. And so I both simultaneously love it because I think and I think this is true for any entrepreneur. It's like you just hit this point where you're tired of people telling you what to do all of the time. And so one of the appeals of starting your own thing is like, I get to call the shots. But then when you have days where you're like, my boss sucks and my boss is me, like, what do you do with that? Wrestling through it. And so all things being said, I can be kind of hard on myself as far as celebrating the wins and how far I've come. It does feel there's this level of every time I knock off 3 to 5 things on my list, 15 more sprout up on the to-do list. And I love, Tony, you had a post, I think it was this week or last week, about all that, you've listed like 10 things that didn't work out and then things that did. And I have felt that way so many times. So it's both exhilarating and really challenging. And it really does feel like a roller coaster from like hour to hour and day by day. And I don't know if that changes. I don't know if that changes or if that is just entrepreneurship, because I'll be all, burn, like crying in my Cheerio bowl about something. And then like, oh, I landed a new client. This is so fun. Or, and it just kind of ebbs and flows even throughout the same day. And so I'm still just trying to process like, okay, the ups and downs, and we're doing what we can. And we don't know how long anything should take and how long we should try at something before we hire somebody, and how much we just get scrappy and figure it out. And that's a really long answer, but all that to say, it's going well, depending on the day. Like right now, this is so fun. Like, look what we're doing. But then other times, yeah, it's a lot of ups and downs. And I think the thing I wasn't prepared for was how much sales it is as far as finding new clients. And that feels so obvious on this side of it now. Like, well, what were you thinking? Clients are going to just fall in your lap?
Well, that is what we think. Yeah, that
Because
is what
I've been doing it as
yeah.
a side hustle. I've been doing it as a side hustle for 2 years before I launched. And I can honestly say they'd all been referrals, because I mean, I was only taking 1 to 4 clients on the side while working a day job. So did I think clients were going to just fall in my lap? A little bit, yeah. And so now it's okay, what is learning those new skills of, okay, I'm a great writer. I can help people on their content and their delivery and all of these different things. But, oh, I don't really know marketing, or I don't really know sales, or I don't really even necessarily on the topic of LinkedIn. Like, how is a way to kind of like advertise the fact that you do this thing without being like sales girl all the time, or like how direct should you be versus like nuance just within your content. And I think I'm processing through and trying to figure out a lot of those things. So you guys can teach me what you know.
Nausheen, I think for some reason I feel like you have a good answer to that question.
So I want to say being an entrepreneur, I think, really teaches you the difference between marketing and sales. I had a background in marketing. I can do marketing. I'm good with it. I know what branding is. I know how to have a cohesive brand identity, but I had zero experience in sales. So that's, to Eva's point, is exactly something I had to learn on the job. And this is my second time around. And it does not get easier. I am sorry to share the bad news. I have been an entrepreneur before. And the first time that I was an entrepreneur, that was not on the books. It was not part of the plan. I had always been an employee. None of the people in my family were entrepreneurs. It was just not a thing people did. My mother was a teacher. My dad worked in the government. And we just always worked for other people. And that was life. But I met my husband, and he had been a solopreneur for a very long time. And he would open this world of why not for me. And he was like, why don't you try doing something on your own? And I was really, really scared. But the really great thing was that I happened to be in a country where I was unemployable. We came to China, and I did not speak the language. And if you don't speak the language, you can't really work in a Chinese company. And knowing about Asian culture, I also wasn't entirely thrilled at the prospect. So I, by kind of accident or default, became an entrepreneur as a filmmaker. And I loved the entrepreneurial side of it more than the actual film side of it for a while, because it was such a thrilling experience. And we were able to scale up. We were able to bootstrap to $1 million. And guess what? I also burnt out. So I had this entire journey, which then ended in like 2020 with me just letting go of the team and taking care of my mental health and telling myself, I am never doing that again. And in 2022, here we are. So second piece of bad news, it's also addictive.
Are you intending to build a business beyond solopreneurship, Nausheen, or how are you thinking about that?
That was one of the biggest lessons I learned from scaling up my filmmaking startup, that I don't particularly enjoy being in like ops, being in business development, or being like the boss that then has to like be responsible for the salaries. And I was my own HR head. So no, I would say that solopreneurship is definitely something that I'm more interested in now and investing in now. And of course, we all work with freelancers. We work with different kinds of resources that are project-based. And that's really the best way of doing it, I think, for me, for my personality.
Eva, are you in the same boat?
I don't know yet. I'm going to be really honest. I don't know yet. At this point, my goal for year one is just me. And then I do think more of contracting out and kind of having other writers or people that help or do pieces. But I don't know yet.
Right on.
What about you?
I'm intending to build a business. I'm intending to go the entrepreneurial route. I have a silent partner in Contender, who was my former CEO, Josh, who's also been a friend for a long time. And he we hatched a plan to work together. So I joined his company, Mission Matters Group. And then he was like, basically he said, like, this place is like, this role is too small for you. You need to get out and go do this. And so, yeah, but for the first year or so, I'm expecting it to be just contracting out a little bit, but the intention is to actually build an agency. We'll see though. But that, even talking to you or listening to you talk about the challenge of, well, number one, all of the things and like all the decisions. That post from the other night that I put was like all the things that I'm doubting myself on, but then the things that I'm not. Um, and it was funny. I actually I had this dude drop into my DMs after I posted that, and he was like giving me this like bro coach vibe.
Oh,
Like, can I ask you a question? And I
the
was like,
worst.
yeah, man, you can ask a question. And then he's trying to deep dive. And I was pretty quick, like, dude, I've got an entrepreneur coach. I've got I've got my sales coach. I've got my life coach, and
And
I've
speech
got
coaches in your
yeah,
corner.
like my coaches have coaches, man. I'm good on this front. And like this post was not a cry for help. It's just sharing the journey, right? It's just
Mhm.
that there are 1,000 things we're thinking about and 1,000 decisions we're making all the time. And look, they're not all going to be the right decision. But what I'm really clear on and what's fantastic is like what I'm doing, right? I'm clear on who I help. I'm clear on how I help them, and I'm clear on my ability to deliver on what I do. Like those
Mhm.
things I'm really good on. And then all this other stuff, it's like you figure it out as you go, right? But I am interested in digging in a little more on how the two of you are thinking about that sales funnel. And I'm thinking about this from the angle of this being a podcast about LinkedIn and the power of creating and connecting, right? And one thing that people keep bringing up when they're talking to me about the podcast is like they love hearing the nitty gritty about how we do stuff. And so you Nausheen, you mentioned the difference between marketing and sales, and I like the idea of marketing as the net and sales as the spear. You know, you're going spear fishing instead of fishing with the net. And um I was like a dog chasing cars up until really it's been a month now that I'm working on Contender, where like I was just trying to get people to look at my content enough that I would show up on nonprofit leaders' feeds in a way that when I slid into their DMs asking for a meeting, I was more likely to get it. Right. That was my only goal. That was all I needed. And now, and during that time, I looked at the game and that I was like, it doesn't look like that hard of a game. The like funnel game. It's like I could do that if I wanted to, but I'm like a true artist out here. I don't need that. So like now this last month where I'm doing it, it's been it's been exciting, it's been humbling, and I will say it is exhilarating. Like when it works, it is so much fun. Um
Mm-hmm.
Watch me jujitsu that into a question since we're having a conversation. But um, how are the two of you thinking about like kind of that process of your do you think of it as a funnel? And if so, what does that look like for you and your businesses?
I
I
do think of it as,
almost,
oh, go ahead.
sorry. I was going to say, I think that it's about building it as you go along. I don't think that you can just kind of plan out this whole funnel and then kind of launch it. That's the way that I've been thinking about it. So I know that, you have kind of leads coming in, and I know the ideal funnel that I want to get to, which is, having low ticket offers and then kind of having people, go through this funnel where they're able to then buy the higher ticket services.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the low ticket offers right now because I'm not ready yet. I want to start off with the higher ticket services because those are also the things that are closest to my heart, because I want to work with people one-on-one. That's my passion. I don't want to just give them a course, not yet. Maybe next year. That's one of my goals. So I would really say I think of it as pieces of a puzzle that I'm kind of putting together, and I never intended to have like a fully formed funnel, but I understand some of the pieces that go into it, especially now after looking at and analyzing other people's funnels. I think that is also really interesting to understand where are people drawing people in. You mentioned Justin early on, and he's a big fan of the wheel and the spoke model, where he has the hub as I think it's his newsletter or his LinkedIn post. No, his hub is, I guess, his newsletter, and then he has spokes coming out which kind of guide everyone towards the same hub. And I like that model. So understanding all these models and figuring out what really works for your business and how to have the different parts of the funnel that are gonna then drive more traffic towards the end. I think that's the approach I'm following.
And I would say I have kind of similar. I've mapped out what the phases of the funnel would be, and I'm kind of working in reverse order. So it's like top of funnel, LinkedIn. I'm posting things, I'm getting engagement, being on podcasts, there's things at the top of the funnel. But then currently my only product is like one-on-one coaching, which is going to be the most expensive item. And so, but I'm actually working backwards. So like, even though there's a lower ticket, like I want to write a book because I've always wanted to, and that's going to be, your $10, $15 item. And then yes, down through the thing of the courses and then this, but I'm now, because I already feel like I have a lot of really good one-on-one coaching, I'm working on, okay, what does the group coaching experience look like that would be a less expensive price point? So I've been wrestling through all week of just establishing like, what are my group coaching offerings going to be, and then realizing for myself, even a few months in, how much more I like working with people in person rather than virtual and Zoom. And so determining, okay, how many virtual Zoom clients do I want versus in person, and then how do I do that, and then how much speaking do I myself want to do, or starting my own podcast or writing my own materials versus coaching other people on it. And so I'm kind of balancing through some of those questions of like, okay, where do I ultimately want to go? But I think I'm doing the reverse funnel in the sense of I have the very top and then I have the very bottom, but I'm working from the bottom up, knowing from a revenue perspective, for me, you have to sell a lot more $10 books than, $1,000 or $1,500 group coaching experience. Mm-hmm. And so I want to do both, and I plan to do both. But in the short term prioritization, like I'm going to work from the most expensive back to the biggest part of the funnel, because I feel like I already have that top part of the funnel because of LinkedIn, and I'm already offering a lot of free things and getting a lot of engagement that way. I don't know if that's the right approach or not, but that's what I'm doing.
That's awesome. And I just ran my first boot camp as well.
Oh, how was it?
I'm actually, it's not finished yet. Like, we're going to have our last session this Tuesday. Oh, amazing. Exhilarating. I ended up with people from all over the world, which is like the absolute, the thing that everyone loves about it. So I have 2 Americans, someone from Hong Kong, someone from Bangladesh, and someone from Australia, all in my boot camp. And we found miraculously a time zone that works for everyone. And when we get feedback on the way everyone's speaking and presenting, that's when like the real magic happens, because you really see all these different experiences and cultures giving you feedback that you can then use and improve. So I would absolutely recommend doing more thinking on your group program, because it's a very different dynamic, and it really helps you grow as well as a coach, because now you're coaching 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 people all at the same time, and hoping that they're, and also you have to find that mix between teaching and interaction. That's been an interesting one for me as well.
So Eva, one thing based on what you were saying is that came to mind was Justin Welsh, the godfather of solopreneurship as far as LinkedIn is concerned, right? I think that actually tracks with how he started, which was the one-on-one, the consulting work. And then you kind of build out other offerings based on that. But yeah, it makes sense. I mean, not only is the higher ticket item the way to make a living, it's also the way to make the most impact and to learn the most, right? So that makes perfect sense. I want to hear a little more about what your sales looks like in like, okay, so all 3 of us are relying heavily if not exclusively, on LinkedIn for building our businesses. Like I'm finding myself in a position in this first month where, I pivoted hard, where I wasn't really talking about lawyers before a month ago, right? And now all of a sudden a fair amount of my content is like, here's how lawyers can use this platform more effectively, right? And what I'm finding is I've been really pleased with how it's worked, um, in terms of, like getting the leads and getting the calls. And I do have a lower ticket item that is an hour session, where, so like my offerings are like this hour session, which I think maybe we'll just start calling a strategy session, because that's what people are calling it to me, instead of what I call it, attraction session. But that's neither here nor there. So that's like 250 or so, and for one session, right? And then I offer people the opportunity to apply that against the first contract, like against the first quarter of coaching, if they want to do that, or ghostwriting, which is like my high ticket item, right? And I have found that mechanism, and frankly, I fell into it sort of ass backward. It wasn't how I intended for it to work, but it is working in a way that people are springing for that. And I also have like a 20-minute free consultation, but I'm actually finding that as many people are just signing up for that, for the strategy session, as the free thing first, which I'm a little surprised that people would go for that first. But anyway, but what I'm finding is like I'm getting a little bit of inbound interest, but mostly it's like I'm watching to see who's watching me, or like who checks out the profile. And then it's outbound, getting into their DMs and saying, hey, thanks a lot for having a look. And just saying, hey, and then people taking action based on that. So it's like that combination of, you're putting the content out that's drawing the attention, but then it seems like, to your point, Eva, are like, shouldn't people just like come ask me how they can give me money? It seemed, for me, it's been nice that people have responded positively, but it has typically involved my going after them a little bit. So I'm interested in how that's looking for the two of you.
I would say for me, it's something I'm still definitely working through, because I think, I can't remember what you call it, discovery call. What did you call your initial, you had a snappy, the 20-minute thing?
Oh,
what
the
did you
initial
say
consult? Well, I have an hour
just
that's a
initial
strategy
consult.
session.
Okay.
Yeah, just a consult.
Yeah. So I have been doing kind of like those initial, get to know you conversations. But what I, just full confession, one challenge I've had on LinkedIn is I don't know how legit somebody coming in is. And I've tried to do like a speaker intake form to just kind of get like, hey, do you have upcoming speaking? Like asking some detailed questions, but I'm still refining what that is, so that I don't waste as much time, because, some people will reach out that just truly can't afford me, or they're just not the right fit for me. But based on their profile, I didn't necessarily know that, like the digging around that I did, and vice versa. I have a couple clients right now who are amazing, but from like a numbers perspective, or like they're just not super engaged on LinkedIn, or their numbers are lower, or even social media in general, that have been amazing clients. So I'm not good at assessing on the front end to not spin the wheels and because sometimes I'll have that 20-30 minute call that's, oh, this is great. And then other times it's like, oh, that was totally not a good fit. So all that to say, I am still trying to figure that out. I feel that it's hard. I found that it's a little tricky. I would say maybe I'm still just kind of waiting to people come to me. I do have quite a few people message me. So as far as getting the good leads, and I try to be as proactive as I can to schedule with them. And I do think that my price point is currently too low, because people I don't usually once I say my rates, people agree pretty quickly. And so not that I want to like turn people away, but like that to me, I was like, I'm still just processing through like, okay, what do you charge and how much do you charge and for what? And some clients, as you guys both know, some clients are so easy and they're like a dream. And then other clients are way more work. And so even for me assessing on the front end, what kind of questions do I need to ask to determine how much work individual clients will be? I don't know how will I answer your question because this is a pain point of mine. And I feel like you're just rubbing salt in it a little bit.
No,
But
it's
yeah, to
tough
speak,
that
the sales piece is for me, it's tough and it is wading through, trying to figure out a better system for wading through how serious they are before I even do that first call with them.
yeah, no, that really resonates from the business development work I was doing for that year, where I was taking a bunch of calls. I was looking for, I mean, the pool of people I would talk to was huge. And for the first like 5 months I was doing it, I would just talk to anybody. Like, if you want to have a call, I'll have a call with you because I think you might be. And it took me forever to figure out, oh, very few people are actually actual prospects for this business.
Yeah.
It's been nice. Like I niche down on the lawyers for obvious reason of having the background, but I have found it to be so nice to have that specificity in that I haven't run across any of that in the last month. I think because they're just a serious enough bunch that like only people who are interested in it are going to actually talk to me. But yeah, I got lucky on that. I feel like I'm lucky on
Interestingly
that.
enough, though, I would say my very best clients that I have gotten on LinkedIn have been referrals from people who follow me, like my content, and they refer me to somebody else who's not following me. And so that's the thing I found really interesting. It was like truly my best clients have been referrals from someone else that follows me, that doesn't use me as a coach, but just follows my content.
That's the real
Referrals are,
unlock.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nausheen, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say referrals are something that work in any business, in any culture, any geography. And that is just beautiful. It's weird and bizarre, but beautiful. And that's how my filmmaking startup took off. It was literally just through referrals. It was through people exactly like that who were just consuming my content that I was putting out on Chinese social media. They were not my clients, but they just spread the word. And the key for me during filmmaking was to really find those super connectors who were really connected to a lot of people, businesses, and they would just keep connecting me. They would just keep referring me. And in some cultures, the power of referral is a bit stronger than others. I would definitely say China is one of them, where, referrals, word of mouth, people referring other people is just, it's incredible. Like, it's almost like the deal is almost like done before you even have the first conversation. It's not the same way in other cultures, but it's still very, very powerful. So that's something that's consistently surprised me as well.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I went live this afternoon for the first time and um got a couple solid referral leads out of somebody coming and hanging out during that, that was not the intention, but it is part of the magic of the platform, right? And I think when we're talking about it being a life-changing thing, um well, this may be a nice place to wind down.
Already?
I
Let's go for
know,
three
right?
days.
We can do. I was telling
And
somebody,
these are my Friday night plans. Like I booked my Friday night for this. So
we, don't
There
tempt
was
me, Eva. We'll roll for 3 hours. Don't tempt me.
that should be the
No,
next thing, right? Never ending LinkedIn live. Like, turn LinkedIn into Twitch.
I think Tony's mind, for those who cannot see it, Tony's mind was just blown. His hat came off. It popped off its head. His hat just popped off the head.
I mean, that's a really interesting. So yeah, so I I have a problem. It is a problem where I the new ideas, the shiny objects, like not
Right.
only do I find them really tempting, I'll just go do them. I mean, this podcast, one such project. I had no business starting this podcast. I have 12 other things going on. But the idea was just so good that I was like, I have to do it. I have to do it. And what you just described,
oh no, what did I do?
Well, I have this idea for like a LinkedIn content creator fantasy league. And what this would look like, would be like you've got like your managers, right, of the team, right? So let's say it's like 6, the first one, right? And then you each draft your team of content creators, right? And let's say you have 5 players on a team, right? And let's say you can only have like one person who's over like 75,000, and you have to have one person who's under like 2,000, right? And then you're tracking certain metrics as you go along, right? Like you're tracking like what I
see it happening,
right? But like the genius of this idea, and I do think it's a genius idea, is you're filming the draft. You're doing like weekly, like nightly live updates on the standings. You're looping in all the people who are the content creators being tracked for things where you can like, so it's just like an endless stream of content about making content on LinkedIn. I'm fine talking about this idea in public because it's so stupid that I don't think anybody else is going to be crazy enough to do it. I think I'm going to take a crack at it because then also I think you can sell sponsorships to it that would actually make the thing viable as a rev stream. What do you think? Do y'all want to be in? You want to partake?
It sounds very interesting. And I actually like the idea. Sorry, I actually like the idea of talking about it in public, because I don't think that this is like a one person thing that you can just pull off. You need other people to be on board, right? And to be able to pull something off. So talking about it in public is great.
What's the prize for the winning team, and how do you define winning at the end?
Yeah. Exactly. What I mean, that's where you come in. I don't know. How the hell should I know?
Okay.
He doesn't have it figured out.
Whoever steals this idea and goes and figures it out, because you have to have something at stake. You have to have stakes in competition, the level of stakes in competition.
So when I first thought about it, I was thinking of it as probably a charity thing. Like that was one thing, because I also had an idea of like that the managers buy in. And then it's almost like a home poker game where, like everybody throws $100 in or whatever. And then, you divide it up for like first and second. But I'm pretty sure that would count as illegal gambling in a way that would be problematic.
You would know these things. I mean, you can't.
Well, I'm both. Yeah. It's both a lawyer and a gambler. But I think what it might need to be is that's where the sponsorships come in. That actually the sponsorships are bringing in enough that they're covering both the prize purse and the cost of production. But that would be part of it, right? And then it just seems like the perfect storm of like, you want to gain traction on LinkedIn. You talk about LinkedIn, right? So it's just like gamifying the LinkedIn content production game in a way that
I just love the idea of different kinds of projects and movements that kind of get started on social platforms. I mean, when Social Saturday first started, that was amazing. Just like one person or two people, I think, coming up with this idea of like, let's just have people connect in this fun way, and it took off and it blew up, and it was just beautiful just watching it. And it's still going. It's still going every single Saturday, and it really, these things for me really harness the true power of social media, which sometimes we forget that there's just so much potential there, because there are a lot of people, and you don't just have to think small. Sometimes you can really think big. And I don't think enough people are doing that.
That's really well said. And it is part of what the three of us are seeing on this platform, where how unexpected is it for the two of you that you are building the businesses you're building now, right? I mean, for me, if you would have told me of 14 months ago that this is what I would be doing at the end of 2022, I absolutely would not believe it. Like the idea that somebody would be able to build a business around posting on social media for lawyers would not have occurred to me as even possible. Are you in similar boats?
I mean, I had been doing it as a side hustle. So the business itself, I was envisioning apart from LinkedIn, but what I had no comprehension of is like how LinkedIn would become where I got all of my clients. And it really is astounding to me. And what's astounding to me is, like I said, I only started posting in February. I like next year, if we do this again and we have this conversation, even if it's not for the podcast, just the three of us talk, like, what will it be at that point? Like maybe we will be these leagues of content creators. But it really is amazing to see. Yeah, I wouldn't, if you told me a year ago that I'd be quitting my job and basing a business completely because of the confidence that LinkedIn gave me, I would have laughed.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my biggest goals coming out of the filmmaking business was that I wanted to be location free. I wanted a business that did not rely so much on me being on location and on finding resources within that location. And with filmmaking, you're just very, very tied down to a specific place. Even if you travel to make a film or to make a commercial, you have to find on-ground resources. You just cannot be independent. It takes a village to make any kind of a commercial or a film. And it was super exciting when I was in it. And it's a whole different kind of adventure and challenge, but it does not let you be independent, does not let you be location free. That was my biggest goal. And that for me has been the truly astounding result of, being on LinkedIn, that I can truly be location free. And now we're moving out of China next year. We're moving to France. And it would not have been possible if I wasn't building a business online that I could take with me anywhere.
It's unreal. And
Amazing.
yeah, I see myself in a similar boat where my wife, well, I don't know, maybe my wife will learn about this when she listens to this podcast.
Does she listen to all your episodes and all,
She actually doesn't listen to this. I have another podcast that we're like 20 episodes in on. That one's more about like healthy masculinity. She listens to all of those. She likes that one. This one she's not as interested in.
My husband never listens to my podcasts.
Yeah.
He's used to me saying all this stuff. He's like, "What? You're not saying anything new, Nausheen. I know all of these stories. I was the origin of some of these stories."
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things as a built-in audience over this year is like people who know me don't. It's one of those. I released a book 3 months ago, right? And Eva, you were kind enough to pick it up. Thank you very much.
I bought it and I took a picture and sent it your way. It was great.
I really appreciate your doing that. It's most of the books that I sold were because of LinkedIn, and it's been so nice not to be in the position of like relying on your friends and family to be the ones to buy your thing, because then it's like, did they do it because they're interested or just so that they can avoid the awkwardness of when I'm like, did you read my book? Yeah. And but like, also they're the ones who know that I'm a total dumbass, So like, they're actually like, the one that's the reason, right? That they wouldn't do that. So it's an amazing thing. And as far as I can tell, that we're just getting warmed up, like as a platform and a community. And yeah, it's going crazy. I want to be mindful of your time. What's that? Go ahead.
I was just going to say one last thing. This dynamic of people from your past noticing what you're doing on socials now that you're more visible. Yeah, this was truly incredible because people from, people that I knew 7 or 8 or 10 or 12 years ago are coming back and sending me these incredible messages saying, Nausheen, I've been watching your work. I've been reading your posts. You're doing such great work. And it's just completely unexpected. I had family members that I had lost touch with get back in touch with me because of me posting on LinkedIn. And I mean, I had no idea where they were. I was never a big family person back in the day. Now that I'm getting older, I'm getting more like back into it. So I literally like got back in touch with like family members because of LinkedIn. And I was completely not expecting this at all. There have been a few nasty surprises too. I'm not going to lie. With more visibility come the trolls. So I have had a few trolls, but thankfully manageable. And I haven't really been too traumatized as a result.
I've only had one troll.
I was like, Eva, not on the trolls, but I do agree on people coming out from the woodwork, like old friends from college or coworkers from other jobs, and people are really funny. They're like, man, you've just been so active, and I see all the stuff you post on LinkedIn. And some it's been interesting because I'm like, oh, you see it, but you've never liked or commented on it once, and so that's one of those interesting things too. It's like I went to this alumni event for my college that Nashville had, and I bumped into somebody I hadn't seen since 2006, and she's like, oh, I just love all your content. And I don't think she's ever liked or commented on anything. So that's just a fascinating phenomenon of it too, is that people might be seeing all of these things that you're doing, but they don't ever engage.
Yeah. Well, and Nausheen was saying that when she started posting, she didn't know that you were supposed to go comment on other people's stuff, right? that was even a thing. And I was really in the same boat. And
yeah,
I mean, frankly, I find that to be greatly encouraging for where we're going. Is it's just every day more people are learning, and we're only scratching the surface of what this platform is capable of as more and more people start pressing like, start adding a little bit to conversations in the comments, start thinking, I wonder what I would talk about if I started talking about. And then it's just, I mean, we're 3 entrepreneurs sitting here building businesses that only exist because of our engagement on this platform. And the number of people creating on this huge platform is still, single digits. It's a very small one. So, all right. We should go. We should stop this. So I'm going to be including obviously your LinkedIn profiles in the show notes. Is there anywhere else you want to direct people to learn more about you or what you do?
Yeah, sure. I have a newsletter called Speak as a Leader, and I would love for people to check it out. It gives a lot of value, and it talks about stuff that I don't talk about on LinkedIn, or it provides like 50 more levels of detail on what I'm talking about on LinkedIn. So it's called speakasaleader.com, and you can check it out.
We will
and LinkedIn for me is still the best way to reach me and this entrepreneur journey. We're working on websites and all sorts of things, but right now it's LinkedIn.
Perfect. Well, thank you both. This was a lot of fun. I figured an hour wasn't going to be enough for this conversation. So thank you for being so gracious with your time. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks so much for having us. This was amazing.
All right. Thank you very much for sticking with the show. That was a really fun one. And I've got another fun one coming up next week where I talk to Chris Sellers and Travis Hinkle, 2 of my sort of creativity corner bros on the platform, including Chris, who he might have been my first LinkedIn friend, really, way back in November of 2021. we go back that far, and he just released a book, Applied Creativity, that is available on Amazon. Um, I've still got a book, In the Creative Arena, available on Amazon. And you can check the show notes for the info about our guest today and more info on Contender. If you are a lawyer or a law firm, or you know somebody who is, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks a lot for listening, and I will see you out there in Linky Land.